He didn't flinch. He didn't speak. He just touched his throat. Thomas Bradley sat motionless as the bailiff clicked the handcuffs tight. The metal scraped against the wooden table in Courtroom 4A. A woman near the gallery whispered, "Look at that scar. Probably unstable." Someone snickered. Phones lifted. No one looked away. The judge shuffled papers. The prosecutor smirked. Bradley's compass, polished brass, Vietnam era, sat on the evidence table like an accusation waiting to be spoken. "Keep your hands visible," the deputy muttered, breath heavy with stale coffee. Thomas obeyed, without protest. His fingers were steady, his jaw set, but his thumb traced the scar along his throat, once, barely visible. The air conditioning hummed overhead, sterile, cold, relentless. The smell of industrial cleaner, nervous sweat, and courthouse coffee hung thick. On the prosecutor's table, a medical file, pages spread wide, revealing typed words in government font. Bradley, Thomas J. Status: combat, medic, retired. Risk assessment: mentally unstable. If you believe no combat medic should be treated this way, type the word honor below. Your voice matters more than you think. The courtroom door shut with the finality of a verdict already decided. Thomas Bradley didn't resist. The bailiff kept his grip firm anyway, fingers pressed into the faded flannel, blue with a patch barely visible. "Doc Bradley, 1st Marine Division." The public defender didn't look up. The judge didn't meet his eyes. "Defendant is present." The clerk mumbled to no one. Thomas sat where told. The chain between his cuffs clinked against polished wood, a metallic reminder that healing hands could be seen as weapons. The girl in front row started recording. "That's the guy who threatened to stop someone's heart, right?" Someone laughed. "With those shaky hands? Doubt he could start an IV." But Thomas's hands weren't shaking. They were perfectly still, surgeon still. The room blazed with LED brightness, harsh shadows making every line look like damage. Air hung thick with floor wax and fear sweat. His boots stayed planted. Brown leather, resoled twice. The left sole worn from decades beside stretchers. The right toe scuffed. Shrapnel from a mortar that missed its mark but left its signature. The shirt buttoned to his collar hid most of the scar. But enough showed to tell the story no one wanted to hear. The brass compass caught fluorescent light 20 feet away, close enough to see its needle pointing true, too far to touch. The prosecutor stood. "What we have here is a man who confuses silence with dignity." The jury leaned forward, hungry for conviction. Thomas didn't move. He's had every chance to explain. He chooses silence. Maybe that worked stitching wounds in foreign jungles, but here? Silence means guilt. Several jurors nodded. Case closed before it started. Thomas blinked once, then spoke. Just one sentence, low, clear, unbreakable. "You fear silence because it doesn't beg." The words hit like defibrillator paddles. Even the court reporter jerked up. The prosecutor's confidence flickered. Just for a heartbeat. But Thomas saw it. He didn't elaborate. Didn't need to. His cuffed hands rested flat. The right thumb found a worn spot on his collar, where a medical caduceus used to be pinned, removed long ago, but the fabric remembered. The public defender finally looked over. Saw a man not shrinking, standing without standing. "He admits nothing," the prosecutor said, louder now. "Offers no witnesses, no explanation, only attitude." Silence answered, but it wasn't empty silence. It was loaded. The ceiling fan clicked. The coffee smell intensified. Someone's phone buzzed and died. Thomas didn't flinch. On the prosecutor's table, that file lay open. Coffee-stained, government-stamped, mentally unstable. As if surviving trauma made you dangerous instead of valuable. The bailiff tightened the cuffs. No reason except power. Thomas didn't resist, didn't look away. His eyes found the compass, not expecting justice, but remembering purpose. The morning dragged like an execution in slow motion. First witness, Nurse Patterson. Scrubs pressed for TV, voice carrying practiced victimhood. "He cornered me," Patterson said, playing to the cameras. "Said he knew pressure points that could stop a heart in seconds." The jury ate it up. Fear always tastes more real than truth. Thomas remained statue still, breathing steady as a metronome. The prosecutor stepped closer to the jury. This man weaponized medical knowledge. Murmurs rippled, phones zoomed, someone whispered, "Look at his hands, definitely measuring distances." No one asked what really happened in that corridor. No one mentioned the 89-year-old veteran Patterson had been manhandling. No one asked context. The prosecutor picked up a thick folder. Red stamp visible. Confidential. Mental health. Mr. Bradley attempted suicide in 1973. Post-combat psychiatric evaluation. Unstable for civilian integration. He held it high like evidence of guilt. A man who tried to end his own life, threatening to end someone else's. Gasps. Phones recording. Someone's sharp intake of breath cut the air. Thomas's thumb pressed the scar. Once, brief. For the first time, he closed his eyes. 1 second, then opened them. Outside, clouds swallowed the sun. The harsh fluorescence seemed to brighten in response. The prosecutor circled behind Thomas. Too close, predatory. He didn't come here to defend himself. He came to intimidate us with silence. He stopped directly behind Thomas's chair. Hasn't said one word, except to challenge this court. No objection came. The defender scrolled her tablet like she was checking email. The jury watched Thomas like specimens watch the scientist. Waiting for reaction, he gave them stone. The prosecutor returned to evidence table, picked up the compass, held it like a weapon. This, he announced, guided him through life-saving missions. He examined it with theatrical doubt. Tell me, does this look like a healer's tool? Or precision death? He walked toward Thomas, slowly, like a cat approaching cornered prey. Mr. Bradley, do you still have steady hands for this? The compass caught the light, brass mirror bright, the needle pointing true north, unwavering, faithful, honest. Thomas looked at it, once, then away, as if it hurt to see something that remembered what he used to be. The prosecutor smiled, victory taste in his mouth. No answer? Because you know what this represents? He dropped the compass on the defense table. Hard. Clank. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The needle trembled, then found north again. His past doesn't excuse his present, the prosecutor declared. He walked away. Left the compass abandoned, like everything else Thomas had ever done that mattered. Someone laughed. The defender said nothing. The judge looked away. And Thomas Bradley sat in the wreckage of his reputation, watching his life's work reduced to evidence of instability. But the compass still pointed north. The compass lay abandoned. No one moved to honor it. The courtroom settled into its rhythm of paperwork and prejudice. Thomas Bradley's shoulders shifted. Something fundamental changing. Slow, deliberate, inevitable. Without permission, he stood. The bailiff's hand moved to his weapon. Thomas ignored him, ignored everyone. He stepped around the table. Chains clinked like quiet bells. Then he knelt, one knee on cold tile, both hands reaching for the compass the prosecutor had discarded. He lifted it like it was made of prayer and memory. The brass was warm, engraved on the back, barely visible unless you knew to look. TJB. Precision Saves Lives, Bravo Company, 1971. He stared at it, long enough to remember faces, voices, last words. Then, with reverence reserved for folded flags, he cleaned a fingerprint and placed it gently on the table. Not returned to the prosecutor, not shown to the judge, positioned with surgical precision. The room watched without understanding. They saw movement, missed meaning. But something shifted. Air pressure before storms. The lights flickered. Dust swirled in shaft of sunlight. Thomas sat, hands flat on the table, the compass before him now, dignity and evidence, side by side. He looked down once more and spoke. They kept the record, but forgot the mission. No one replied, because for the first time all morning, no one could. Behind them, a door opened, quietly. The door didn't announce itself, just shifted the air like weather changing. A woman entered. Mid-40s, silver hair, military precision, dark blue uniform with oak leaves catching fluorescent light. She walked like someone used to operating rooms and emergency decisions. The clerk stood instinctively. Security didn't challenge her. Her eyes found Thomas Bradley. Only Thomas Bradley. He didn't move, but his shoulders rose, a breath he'd held for decades. "Excuse me, this is—" The prosecutor started. She ignored him like he was background noise. "I'm Colonel Sarah Martinez, MD retired." Her voice carried operating room authority. "I request permission to address the court." The judge hesitated. The silence was absolute, heavy as anesthesia. Granted. Colonel Martinez walked down the aisle like someone accustomed to life and death decisions. She stopped beside Thomas, looked directly at him, and saluted. He didn't return it, because they both knew. She wasn't saluting him now. She was saluting what he'd done. She turned to the courtroom. 23 years ago, I was a lieutenant colonel stationed in Kuwait, field hospital, mass casualties incoming. And then the unthinkable happened. Mortar attack, direct hit on our medical unit. Gasps rippled through the gallery. I was trapped, bleeding out. 3 others critically wounded, no extraction possible. And then, someone started operating. She looked at Thomas. No supplies, no proper tools, just knowledge, steady hands, and the refusal to let anyone die. For 18 hours straight, under intermittent fire, without sleep, without hesitation, she faced the prosecutor. He saved 4 lives that day, including mine. She turned back to Thomas. I didn't know his name then. He never told me, just worked, silently. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a compass, identical to the one on the table. He gave me this when I stabilized. Said, when you're lost, this points home. When you're scared, it points toward duty. She didn't hand it to Thomas. Set it beside his compass. 2 instruments of precision. 2 promises kept. I wore this compass through 3 more deployments. It guided me home every time. She looked around the courtroom. You see a man with a scar as evidence of instability. I see the hands that sutured my severed artery. You hear silence as threat. I hear the calm focus that kept me breathing. One by one, whispers died. Phones lowered. Eyes dropped, because now they knew who he was. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was recognition taking shape. The judge looked at Thomas, then at Colonel Martinez, then at the file marked mentally unstable. Clerk, display the hospital security footage. Angle 2, timestamp 1430. The screen flickered. Grainy footage filled the space. Hospital corridor. Thomas walking past nurse's station. Elderly veteran in wheelchair. Frail, confused. Patterson handling him roughly. Thomas didn't approach aggressively. He positioned himself between them. Spoke quietly. No audio, but no aggression either. Only protection. Mr. Patterson, the judge said, voice tighter now. Did you review this before filing charges? The nurse shifted. I based my statement on what I felt, which contradicts this. The judge's words cut clean. Mr. Bradley never threatened anyone. The jurors stared at the screen. One shook her head. Another looked away entirely. Colonel Martinez stepped forward. From her pocket, a silver pin. Combat medic badge. Awarded for medical care under direct enemy fire. She looked at Thomas. You never wore yours. Said it belonged to the patients, not the doctor. She placed it beside the compasses. Maybe it's time you kept something for yourself. The prosecutor gathered papers, quietly. No final argument. No dramatic exit. The case was over. The judge spoke without consulting anyone. All charges against Thomas Bradley are dismissed, effective immediately. No applause, no movement, just the weight of justice finally arriving. The handcuffs came off. Carefully now, respectfully. Thomas stood. He didn't look at the prosecutor, turned to Colonel Martinez, nodded once. She returned it. Nothing more needed. He picked up both compasses, his and hers, held them like they weighed more than brass. Outside, rain had started. Gentle. Washing courthouse steps clean. The lobby wasn't empty. Veterans had come, not to speak, to stand. As Thomas entered the corridor, they formed lines. One by one, they straightened, saluted. A janitor removed his cap. A reporter lowered her camera. Thomas paused, raised both compasses, not in triumph but in acknowledgement, and walked into the rain, boots on wet pavement, compasses in his chest pocket. The scar on his throat finally meaning what it always had: survival in service of others. As the courthouse doors closed, a voice from the veteran's line: "He never needed to be defended. He just needed to be seen. If you typed honor earlier, thank you for standing with combat medics everywhere. If you subscribed, welcome to a community that remembers. And if this story moved you, remember this: the compass always points toward those who serve others first. Until next time, precision saves lives."